I always believed my family was close-knit. We weren't just relatives, we were friends. Holidays were loud, full of laughter and inside jokes. Summers meant backyard barbecues, kids running around barefoot, and late nights sitting by the fire. Sharing stories. My sister Emily and her husband Jake were a big part of that. Jake was the kind of guy who lit up a room. The fun uncle, the first one to crack a joke at a family gathering, the guy who always volunteered to help at cookouts. He was a firefighter, a man people respected, trusted. And for years, I thought of him as just that. A good man, a solid husband to my sister, a dedicated father to his kids. My wife, Lisa, had always gotten along well with Jake. They had a playful rapport, like everyone else in the family. She was warm, outgoing, with a sharp wit that made her easy to talk to. Jake was similar, always quick with a comeback, always teasing in a way that made people feel comfortable. Looking back, maybe I should have noticed something was off. Maybe I should have questioned the frequency of his texts to Lisa, even if they were always about family events or kids' schedules. But why would I? We were family. Family was supposed to be safe. So when Lisa told me Jake had invited her to lunch, just the two of them, I was a little taken aback. He said he needs to talk about something, she said, frowning. Do you think it's about Emily? That was the only logical conclusion. Maybe they were having problems, and Jake wanted a woman's perspective. Maybe he needed advice on how to fix things. I don't know, I said, shrugging. But go, find out. She agreed, though I could tell she wasn't completely comfortable. That morning, as she got ready for work, she hesitated before heading out the door. This just feels weird, she admitted. I reassured her. It's probably nothing. Just listen to what he has to say. If it's something serious, we'll figure it out together. I really believed that. I had no idea our lives were about to explode. Lisa arrived at the cafe a little early, picking a table by the window where she could keep an eye on the entrance. It was a busy lunch hour, safe, public. That put her a little more at ease. Jake showed up a few minutes later looking off, nervous. He wasn't his usual confident self, the guy who cracked jokes and made everyone feel at home. They exchanged small talk at first. Work, the kids, normal things. But then, as their food arrived, Jake took a deep breath. His hands were shaking, and then he said it. I've loved you since the moment I first laid eyes on you. Lisa blinked, sure she had misheard. Jake pressed on, his voice trembling. It was love at first sight. Every family gathering, every moment near you, I was just pretending to be okay. But I'm not. I'm in love with you, Lisa. Lisa's stomach twisted. She felt like the ground beneath her had shifted. What? She whispered. He leaned in, desperate. If you were mine, I'd treat you like a queen. You deserve more than... He caught himself, shaking his head. I've held this in for years, Lisa. I couldn't anymore. Lisa's breath came in short gasps. Jake, you're married to my sister. His eyes darkened. I know, and I love her. But not like this. Not the way I love you. The words made her skin crawl. This wasn't just a confession, it was obsession. Lisa pushed back her chair, the legs scraping loudly against the floor. She was done. Done with this conversation, done with Jake's delusions. I'm leaving, she said, grabbing her bag. Wait, Lisa, please. She ignored him, pushing through the crowded cafe. The second she stepped outside, she pulled out her phone and called me. I answered on the first ring. Come home, she said, her voice shaking. Now! By the time Lisa got home, her phone was buzzing incessantly. Texts, calls, all from Jake. First he was apologizing, saying it was a mistake, that he didn't mean it. Then his messages turned into pleas. Please don't tell Emily. I was confused. I thought you felt the same way. Lisa put her phone on the table between us. What do we do? She whispered. My blood was boiling. I wanted to confront him right then and there, to tear him apart for what he had done. But Lisa wanted to tell Emily first. She deserves to know, she said. I agreed, but Jake got there first. At midnight, my phone rang. It was Emily. She was crying. Lisa came on to Jake, she said, her voice thick with betrayal. He told me everything. My stomach dropped. What? He said she tried to start something with him. For a second, I couldn't speak. Then, my rage exploded. Emily, that's a goddamn lie. I told her everything. The cafe, the confession, the texts, which Lisa still had. Emily fell silent. Then, in a cold, controlled voice, she said, Get over here. Now! I called my parents. I called my younger brother. Within minutes, we had a plan. Emily's house. Face to face. Jake wasn't going to talk his way out of this. When we arrived, Jake was already outside, slumped on the porch steps. He looked defeated. Emily stood with her arms crossed, her face unreadable. Lisa didn't say a word. She just handed Emily her phone. Emily scrolled through the messages, her face darkening with each one. Then she played the voicemail. Jake's voice, trembling. Lisa, please. I love you. Don't tell Emily. I can't lose everything. Emily's hand tightened around the phone. Then she turned to Jake. Pack a bag, she said, and go. Jake's face crumbled. Emily! Go, she repeated, her voice ice cold. Before I call the cops. Jake's lip trembled. Then, finally, he nodded, defeated. But the worst was yet to come. Because when Emily went through his laptop, she found them, photos, hundreds of them, of Lisa, years worth, stolen moments at family gatherings, pictures from behind, from across the room, from angles that Lisa never noticed, and the worst ones, pictures from a vacation years ago. Lisa in a bikini, laughing on the beach, all taken without her knowledge. Emily's face turned pale. This isn't just a crush, she whispered. Lisa stared at the screen, horror creeping up her spine. This wasn't love. This was an obsession, and, suddenly, we weren't just dealing with a betrayal. We were dealing with something far, far worse. Emily sat frozen, her fingers clenched tightly around the edge of the laptop. The screen glowed back at us, displaying years' worth of stolen moments. Lisa laughing at a family barbecue, Lisa sitting on the porch reading a book, Lisa standing by the kitchen sink washing dishes. Always alone. Always unaware. Then came the vacation photos. Lisa in a bikini, smiling under the Caribbean sun. There were dozens of them, taken from a distance, from different angles. Some from behind, some capturing her mid-laugh, others zoomed in on her, face in unsettling detail. Emily's breathing was shallow, her face pale as she scrolled through the images. Her hands shook, but she kept going, determined to see just how deep this nightmare ran. Lisa sat beside her, frozen in horror. I didn't know, she whispered. I felt sick. This wasn't just an inappropriate crush. This wasn't just a moment of weakness or misplaced emotions. This was a fixation. Emily exhaled sharply and slammed the laptop shut. This isn't love, she said, her voice flat, void of any emotion. This is something else entirely. Lisa rubbed her arms, like she was trying to shake off a deep chill. Restraining order, she murmured. Does this count as stalking? Emily's face hardened. I don't care what it counts as. He's not staying in this house another night. She stormed out of the room, and a few seconds later, we heard drawers slamming, the sound of clothes being thrown around. Jake was still in the house, stuffing belongings into a duffel bag in the guest room. Lisa and I exchanged glances before following Emily down the hallway. Jake was hunched over his bag, his back to us. When Emily walked in, he straightened, turning, to face her. His eyes were red-rimmed, his face blotchy from crying. I messed up, he choked out. Emily stared at him, her face unreadable. Then, she lifted the laptop and turned the screen toward him. "Explain this." Jake's breath hitched. His gaze flickered to the images, then back to Emily. His lips parted, but nothing came out. "Do you even understand what you've done?" Emily continued, her voice dangerously low. "This isn't just betrayal. This is obsession. This is sick." Jake swallowed hard. I just... No. Emily cut him off. "No more lies, no more excuses. You've been doing this for years, Jake. Years. How long have you been creeping around, taking pictures of my brother's wife like some lovesick stalker?" Jake's face crumpled. He reached out as if to touch her arm, but Emily jerked away. "You need help," she said, her voice sharp with disgust. "Serious help." Jake sagged against the dresser. "I never meant for it to go this far," he mumbled. "But it did," Lisa said coldly. "And now you don't just have a broken marriage, you have a broken family." Jake flinched. Emily's voice was eerily calm. "Get out." Jake hesitated for a second, but then he slung the bag over his shoulder and walked out. The sound of the front door slamming echoed through the house, and just like that, he was gone. In the days that followed, Emily took legal action. She met with a lawyer to discuss divorce and full custody of the kids. Given the overwhelming evidence of Jake's obsession, including the texts, voicemails, and hidden photographs, her lawyer was confident she'd have no trouble getting sole custody. Jake had no fight left in him. He barely protested when Emily had him removed from the house legally. He seemed empty, defeated. Lisa, on the other hand, was struggling. She blamed herself, even though she had done nothing wrong. She kept replaying past interactions, wondering if she had somehow encouraged Jake without realizing it. But she hadn't. Emily knew it. I knew it. And slowly, Lisa started to believe it, too. The betrayal stung, but it didn't break us. If anything, it made our family stronger. Emily and Lisa leaned on each other more than ever. They were bonded, not just as sisters-in-law, but as survivors of the same storm. As for me, I stopped seeing Jake as the fun uncle, the good guy, the family man, because that version of him had never existed. He had worn a mask, and now that it had cracked, all that was left was someone I didn't recognize. A stranger. A man who had spent years living in a fantasy, one that had nearly destroyed us all.